The University of Miami, a team that had been highly ranked all season, they were undefeated for a long period of time. They've lost, I think, 2 out of their last 3 games, including a 42-38 loss to Syracuse this past weekend. They dropped 6 spots and fell out of the CFP. They were expected to be one of the final 12. They were ranked that way. They were expected to play in the ACC championship game, and they're not. And now, according to Ward Manuel, who is the athletic director of the University of Michigan, but more importantly, he's the CFP selection committee chairman. He came out yesterday after revealing the bracket, the rankings. He revealed the rankings, came out and said, there is no scenario, and I'm basically not quoting him, but telling you what he said. There's no scenario that Miami will be in the final 12. And he gave a bunch of reasons, including Miami's not playing this weekend. And if you're not playing this weekend, you don't benefit from that, but you also don't get hurt by playing this weekend, trying to give some importance to the conference championship games that are being played this weekend. And there are a few championship games that matter when they're played this weekend in terms of seeding. SMU, if they lose, they could be out if Clemson beats them. So there are interesting things happening in college football, but I want to focus on something that you may not hear elsewhere, and that is the reasoning behind the power that is given to this selection committee and how they arrive at the decisions they arrive at. You see, they signed a very large media deal. And while John Skipper, my dear friend and CEO and founder of Metalark, he will tell you that ESPN, they never got involved in matchups or wondering what teams would be playing what teams when and where. And I took umbrage with that because I get that he wouldn't want to say anything to show the power of the broadcaster over the power of the conferences or the committee in itself. But I can tell you from experience in working with broadcasters what it is and their involvement in matchups. It is critical, given the amount of money they're paying, the size of the partnership. It's not even realistic. If you've got a partner who gives you so much money into your business, you're going to communicate with that partner. If you want to expand your business, if you want to contract your business, if you want to do some sort of other investment with monies that your business is generating, you're going to talk to your partner. We never would announce anything in baseball without our big industry partners knowing what was happening. You owe it to them. It's called being a partner. I find it very hard to imagine that the broadcaster who is willing to pay multi-billions of dollars over a period of a decade did not have any say, nor would not want any say over who the teams will be. And contrary to what people think in Miami, where there is geographical bias, there is way more interest around the country for a team like Alabama than a team like Miami. It's just the reality of the market. It's the reality of it's like asking, would baseball rather have the Tampa Bay Rays or the Marlins in the World Series or the Dodgers and the Yankees? It's not even a question that anyone internally asks. You can debate whether the excuse that Ward Manuel gave by saying Miami did not have any victories over current top-ranked teams. Well, of course not, because they were ranked when Miami beat them, and that's what made them unranked. So that circular reasoning doesn't work. But they need to come up with something, and that's just farcical, in my opinion. Why not just unveil your rankings and say there is not necessarily a correlation to performance or to who the best teams are in the country. There is simply a desire to placate our broadcast partners because you, the audience, have spoken. You've told us that more of you care about Alabama than care about Miami. And by the way, SMU, you better get ready, because if Clemson beats you this coming Saturday, SMU, who's now projected in the bracket to be a bye team, they may be a bye-bye team, because the way the rules are, there may not be room for Clemson and SMU. Forget Miami rejoining, which, contrary to what the ACC commissioner Jim Phillips will tell you, that he wants a reconsideration. NGTH, it's not going to happen. Miami will not be in. But the irony is that he could get, as a conference, doubly screwed if SMU loses, and they could be jettisoned because the CFP wants to keep Alabama. I can't wait. I'm rooting for it, actually. I like rooting for chaos because chaos actually shows people's true colors, how you act in seas of terror as opposed to tranquility. It's always interesting when you have an employee, when you have a situation that is not normal, you look at your employees, who steps up, who doesn't, who runs into the burning house versus who runs away after having grabbed their memorabilia. It's very telling. What will happen with the CFP if SMU loses will be interesting to watch, because Jim Phillips already has some quotes, and he came out yesterday firing, furious, saying that Miami has more wins and fewer losses than the team directly ahead of them. They had a great victory over an SEC team who happened to, that same SEC team, beat number 13 Ole Miss. He then dropped this, and I want to just read you the Jim Phillips quote because it's a good one. As we look ahead to the final rankings, we hope the committee will reconsider and put a deserving Miami in the field. We will continue to look forward to this weekend when Clemson and SMU have an opportunity to earn an ACC championship and represent the conference in the CFP. Remember, Jim Phillips is answering to all people in his conference, and the ACC gets about, think about it, if you make just the CFP period, your conference gets $4 million for every team in the CFP. If you get a bye the way SMU is currently scheduled to have a bye, and if they beat Clemson, they will get a bye, that's already $8 million the conference gets just for that. There's new money involved here where a team in the final title game, that conference where the team lives gets $20 million. There is tremendous money at stake that's used not just to pay your players, but to basically buttress other programs within your own school. The distributions that are received by lower ranked teams in a conference, take Purdue in the Big Ten, they're going to make a tremendous amount of money depending on the number of Big Ten teams who make the CFP. The fighting that goes on in these conferences is the same fighting that we have in baseball when the big revenue teams say we don't want to give money to the low revenue teams. It's called revenue sharing. There's always fighting over revenue sharing. Conferences do distributions to all teams in the conference of monies they receive for teams being in the postseason. But what teams have started to do, like the Dodgers of college football, they're saying, we participate in the playoffs more often than everybody else in the conference. We want a higher percentage of the conference distribution. And if you don't promise us that, we're going to leave to another conference. Baseball, there's nowhere for the Dodgers to go. They can complain, and they do. And the Yankees can complain, and they do. But guess what? It's a complaint without any backup. If you continue to share so much of our revenue and give money to the lowly guardians, we're going to leave MLB. Okay, where are you going to go? But in college football, the conferences have a real problem because it's not just a threat to switch conferences. We saw this past off season when it was conference musical chairs. Who knows who could leave if distributions are not made uneven? Who knows what's promised when teams join conferences to get uneven distributions? And with the CFP moving to percentage distributions next year, where the SEC and Big Ten get 29% of distributions in the new model, you can bet your bippy that there are going to be conference commissioners who are going to be holding on for dear life, trying to figure out how to keep teams, trying to figure out how to placate teams, both at the top and the bottom of their conferences. It is mayhem. And the reason I think it's a farce, to tell you the truth, is that why not just have rankings? You play the whole season. You know why. It's just business.